Lights, camera, action.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another review, and today we're going to be talking about one of my most anticipated horror movies of the year, Undertone. So this movie pretty much follows a girl who is doing this podcast where they talk about creepy stuff, and she is more of the skeptic, and she has a co-host who is more of the, this stuff's real, let's buy into this. And one night while shooting an episode, they get an email from some random person that has these 10 audio files, and each one they listen to, things get worse and worse and progressively worse as it goes, and then weird stuff starts to happen to our main character. So this is a movie that was on my radar. I heard about it through Sundance and through a couple other things like Fantasia Fest and things like that. And it's been marketed, of course, up until now as one of these scariest movies of the year, scariest movies you'll ever hear, blah, 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 things like that. Oh my God, this movie's so scary. And, doing this as often as a lot of movie people do, or many times people go to the movies, you hear that so much that you're like, yeah, okay, I've heard that a million times. It is what it is. It's whatever. But then I heard like other people start to tell me that it's actually pretty good and really effective. And I heard people that actually got screeners of it and said it was really effective. So I was trying to weigh my options going into it. While I was really excited, I was also trying to temper my expectations. And I have to say that this movie is actually genuinely creepy. So I actually saw this movie on Monday. They had an early screening for it, and I was actually lucky enough to get to go see it. And I actually got to see it in the Dolby Cinema, and that's something that I highly recommend based on the sound design. This movie really needs to be seen in a format or some kind of theater that has the loudest sound system that you can possibly find, because it really does add to the experience overall. So starting out with some stuff I really enjoyed about this movie, one thing in particular is I just love how this movie builds tension through the entire movie. It's honestly, from the start of the movie to the end of the movie, it's just a constant ratcheting up of tension. Like, it never stops. To me, you never feel comfortable enough to kind of sit back to take a breath or anything like that. It keeps ratcheting and ratcheting to the point to where you are just waiting for something to happen so you can get a little bit of relief. And honestly, it never really does that. It has these moments where you do get a little bit of a scare, but for the most part, even after the scare, you're right back in that tense moment again, because you just feel like something is very off, something is very uncomfortable, and it just, the whole time, like there was multiple times in this movie when I was watching it that I was constantly moving around. I was sitting there like this, or like, like that, something like that of that nature, or just gripping my chair. And even to the point to where my audience that I got to see it with was very into it. They were very silent at these times when the sound design would hit. And like there was even a moment where at the end of the movie, where it's leading up to the final act, where something happens and it goes quiet for a second, literally some woman in my showing went, "Oh my God." So it's just a great job of building all this tension, like so very well done with such a simple one location type movie, and it does a damn good job. And as I said before, this movie, it takes place in one location. Essentially, it's our main actress who is taking care of her mother, so she's in this house. So obviously that already creates some kind of weird, crazy, kind of tension throughout there. So her mother is in like this comatose state, so she's trying to take care of her mother. And at the time, so it's got all this stuff going through this house, and the way that they go about shooting the house, the way that they have these angles on certain parts of the house where they will do these slow turns throughout the house, or do these slow camera movements up the stairs, down the stairs. And again, it's just one of those things that oozes so much dread and tension. It's one of those things that I love in horror movies where it's so simplistic, but it's so effective, at least to me. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but for me, those shots of the long dark hallways where it just lingers on it, where you're waiting, you're looking around waiting for it to see where the scares are going to come from. You get these dark rooms like you can see inside of a dark room, but just like you see the outside of the door, but you're peering into this dark room and it just stays on it. And you can hear something in there, but you don't know what's going on in there. So you don't know where the scare is going to come from, if a scare is going to come at all. And I love that about movies like this, because like I said, you're the whole time, you're like, hurry up, let's get to the scare already. But this one doesn't do that. It just lets you live in that moment and really lets you just feel all that tension and dread. And like I said, I love that in horror movies, and it has this movie in spades where it does that. I really love that. It's also really great at building that tension of expectations of, am I supposed to see something, or are my eyes playing tricks on me? Where our character, when she's recording these podcasts, for example, it will show her like I am now, but it also show her to the side with a little bit of space in between with something kind of reflective in the background, like either it be a mirror or some kind of like china cabinet. It's got some glass or something on it, so you can always see your reflection there. So me, I was always looking in the reflection just to see if there's going to be something. And it's the same way when they move the shot and she's not in the center frame anymore. She's off to the side, and you have this big wide open space behind her with these wide open doors and archways that you're always looking. Even though the background is kind of blurred out, you're still always looking back there because you're like, I'm waiting for something to happen because of just how tense you are. Even, like I said, even when she's recording a podcast, things get so amped up and creepy that, like I said, you just cannot help but to feel the tension and the dread throughout. So I love that because this is one of those movies that absolutely merit rewatch because they pan around the house so much, or they have so much of those shots like that set up, that I know for sure that I probably missed a few things that I definitely want to go back and check this out, and this is one that I will definitely be watching again in theaters. I also love the lighting and the overall tone of this movie. It has like this really like just dark feel to it because like everything, a lot of things is kept in the shadows. But I love the stuff how when it comes to stuff with her mom, for example, like the light bulb or the lights, for example, that is in her mom's room is almost like this white, like really, really white, bluish hue to it. So it adds like this kind of overall feel to the movie where it's almost like this cold and lifeless feeling to it. And I think just something real simple like that is easily just as effective. I mean, there's even a scene where the lights in her room get cut on and she's down the stairway, and you can see that like hueish blue light kind of shining down the hallway, down the stairs. And it's equally just as effective and creepy how you're able to set up shots like that. And like I said, it's just brilliantly done in my opinion. But it goes back to what I said about being in the shadows for a lot of things. Even when you're panning around the room, you'll have maybe a light on, like one little light on, and it'll get cut off, but you can still see something in the background. So your eyes are always like looking for something. Like I said, you're always like back there, even though you kind of can sort of make it out. Like I said, which totally remerits a rewatch on this because I really want to try to capture everything that I can in this movie and get everything I can out of it. I think the acting is really well done in this movie, honestly, because it's really just one person. Like, we hear the voice of our main character's co-host, but it's really the whole movie hinges on her. Like, there's points in the movie where she goes out, but you don't see any of that. It's really just her in this house for this entire movie. So pretty much this entire movie hinges on her and her performance, and I think she's so believable that honestly, after a while, to me, it's like you forget you're watching a movie. You're like, it's like you stumbled across this thing that I shouldn't see. Nina Kiri, I think is how you say her name. I apologize if I said it wrong, but I hope I said it right. But I think she does an outstanding job in this movie. I think her performance is top notch. These scenes where she has to play this really skeptical side of her, which she really kind of is in the beginning, and then there's scenes where she starts to get creeped out more as the movie goes along. She has to play that job of kind of keeping it cool, but you can tell that she's freaked out. But she does such a great job of capturing all that. And like I said, this movie would not work without her performance because it's mainly just her. So the whole thing hinges on her performance. So without her, I don't think any of this would have worked. But I think she does such a fantastic job at this. I even think the co-host podcast that is part of this movie, Adam DeMarco, him and our main actress have really great chemistry together. Even though we never see him, he does a great job of really, you can tell that he's freaked out and scared through some of these moments. But he has a great job also of being like the calm, cool collective in certain moments. But I also think that not only is he good, but the actors that are playing this couple that is in this audio files, even though you never see them, they do a great job of visually storytelling of stuff that is going on and happening in the background. And again, it goes back to that sound design because that's what you hear. But they do a really effective job with just being able to hear them. And like I said, as each tape gets scarier and scarier and more crap starts to happen, it's just really effective. They do a really great job. And it's one of those things that sometimes it's scarier what your mind can create than actually seeing something. And I think that's a big part of not only for those audio tapes, but really for this entire movie. I also love how simplistic this movie is. It's nothing over the top, it's nothing major, but it's just like this one location movie that's shot in this house, and the way that they go about, like I said, lighting the house, they show certain things in the house, they go about shooting things in the house. It's all so effective to the point to where honestly you're so drawn into the story that you're like, I am so on board for this, but you're so creeped out in the process. But the way they go about doing it, it's just so simplistic, and I love movies that can take a simple idea like that and turn it into something so effective. And that this movie, man, they run away with that in this movie. One of the things I'm a really big fan of that I don't want to give away because I don't think they give it away in the marketing or anything, so I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to spoil anything. But when they start going through these files that are in this email, I love a lot of the themes that they explore in that, because honestly, the things that they kind of deep dive into is really creepy of its own. Then you're taking these certain things like these fables that we heard as like children, and like even certain other things that we heard as kids. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to give anything away, but you're taking all that and putting a spin on it and twisting it to add an extra layer of creepy onto this movie that's already creepy as hell. I think it was really effective, and it was really well done, and it really, really just added something overall to it. Like I said, I really loved what they explored with that. Now, I want to get into the sound design, because that is what this whole entire movie is hitched on. This is what this marketing and everything else, this is what it was going to be. The sound design in this movie is absolutely incredible. Like I said, I went to go see this movie in the Dolby Theater, and that is the type of theater that this movie is made for. Literally, probably one of the best Dolby experiences I have ever had. And it's such a simple movie, but the way that they did the sound design is just impeccable. I even was looking up some other people who got to see the screening and whatnot, and they were talking about how this was just a really great experience for them, one of the best experiences they had in the Dolby. And that might be something that rings true for a lot of people, because the sound design is just great. Down to everything, because you can legit hear everything, to subtle moments to where even something as simple as when she puts on her headphones to start recording a podcast episode, the entire world is blocked out. You only hear what she hears in the headphones. If something outside is muffled, it is muffled for you. Like I said, anything that she hears in the recordings or on the computer or all the audio, whatever, that's all you hear. Everything else is blocked out. It's the same way when she's walking around this house. There's certain parts of this house where just hearing a light switch flick on, or you'll hear creaks in the floor, the way that they do the mother's breathing, for example, because it's like you start to hear that so much in the movie. There's other parts of the movie where the mother's not even present, and you're like, was that the mom? Did I hear her breathing, or was that her breathing somewhere? The way they do it is so subtle. The whispers, the way that they do these tapes or these audio recordings or whatever, the way that they listen to them and things get progressively worse as they go. The way they do all that is so effective in the sound design. There is one scene in particular where she is listening to one of the audio recordings. I think she's by herself. Yeah, she's by herself. And she's trying to go through to see, because it's like they start to pick up on stuff that maybe you couldn't hear, so they're trying to enhance the audio and find other things that's not there. So she's listening to something that's going on in this, and then things start to happen. I'll just put it that way. But they do such a great build-up with that eventually stuff starts going on around the house. And when she has to get up to start looking around the house, what follows was so creepy. I mean, it was so damn creepy, to the point to where how it's lit. It's another one, goes back to those things with how it's lit. I'm not going to give anything away, but I wish I could, because I'd really want to talk about that scene. But the way that how something is lit and how the sound is going off around it, and the stuff with lights in the background and stuff is popping and whatnot, it was genuinely creepy. Like I said, to the moment where there's people down the road from me that was, I looked and they were all like, so it was just one of those things where it seemed to be really effective. And so I got to give hats off to the sound design, because it was just fantastic how they did everything, and they made it so damn effective. And I want to give a big shout out to the director, Ian Twazon, I think is how you say his name. Again, hope I'm saying it correctly. I pretty much want to give a shout out to him for pretty much everything that I've already covered in this review, because he is just fantastic in how he goes about shooting the movie. Like I said, how he does these angles in the house, how he sets certain shots up to let you just think something's going to happen, but it just leaves you with that dread where the whole time you're like, damn it, I just wish something would happen already so I could breathe a little bit. There was even points in the movie to where, like I said, it pans around the house so much sometimes when she's recording that you have so much dread that I literally said to myself eternally, I was like, damn it, will you please stop panning around the house? I can't take any more of this. But like I said, he does such a great job of how he sets up certain shots and how he executes them and how he, like I said, does things around this house and like even how he wrote this movie. I thought the story was really believable. Like I said, our main actress, she sells this whole thing, and I think between his writing and her acting, I think they were a really perfect match for each other because, like I said, for a movie being so simplistic, it just works so well and it's so effective. Actually, I think I've heard that the director from who did this movie is actually going to be rebooting the Paranormal Activity franchise, and I think I saw a quote from him that said his version is going to be really serious and scary. So if he takes the same tone and approach that he did to this movie, that pretty much honestly has the potential to be probably one of the best, if not the best, Paranormal Activity movie that we've got. While I enjoy that series, there is some that's weaker than others, but I'm curious to see what he can do with that kind of franchise because, like I said, if it's in the same vein as this, it's going to be pretty damn good. And really, one of my biggest compliments about this movie is that it's a movie that relies on storytelling. It's not one that relies on really big jump scares or anything like that. And just shows that you don't have to have a lot of money to create a movie so effective. That's one thing I always complain about with certain modern horror movies. It's like, oh, we have to have this massive budget. And you're like, dude, if you look at movies that they made back in like the 80s and even some of the 70s, how creative they got with certain things and how effective those movies still can be to this day, it makes you more creative. And I think the way that this movie is all about atmosphere and shadows and camera movements and stuff, if you have a good enough director that's effective enough to do all that, you're going to have a pretty damn good, effective movie. And this movie right here kind of proves that for me. I love how this movie, too, when they get these audio files, it becomes almost this mystery of itself. I think the story is so good at telling such an effective story to where as the audio files go on, we start to learn more about our main character. And while we don't know a ton about her, we still know enough about her to really latch on to her, really, really want to know what's going to happen to her and where this story is going to go. But as they listen to these tapes and you find more about her, it's almost like her life and the audio recordings start to become parallel. There's a lot of similarities in between all that. And as the movie goes, that also, to me, it raises the stakes of what's going to happen in this movie because the more of the lore that you find out and the more of the absolute just scary stuff that is uncovered in these audio files, you start to really worry for our main character because you're like, oh my God, because the parallels and the similarities, you're like, oh my God, I just want to see her be okay. And I don't know if any of you that's watching this have ever seen a movie called Session 9, but I got kind of, not the same feeling, but I got the same feeling of, there. If you've never seen that movie, essentially it's these people that are cleaning out a abandoned insane asylum, and they find these tapes in there, and it's, of course, there's 9 tapes, and each time they listen to a tape, something worse happens. So I got kind of that vibe, not really the vibe, but that same kind of feeling, because that is actually a genuinely creepy movie. If you've never seen Session 9, I highly recommend that one as well. But I got that same type of thing to where every time they listen to an audio recording, something gets a little bit worse, a little bit worse, a little bit worse, to the point to where everything just goes batshit in the end. You know what? I'll throw this in a mixed category because even though it's a mixed element for me, it's something I still enjoyed about the movie, so I can't really knock on it. But at the same time, I know that a lot of people will look at that and be like, that was really nothing original. The overall story, where some of the stuff goes when the audio files is uncovered and you start to learn more about what is going on, and it kind of, people will be like, it kind of just turned into this generic blah, blah, blah movie. Like I said, I'm not going to give anything away because I don't want to spoil anything. But I can see a lot of people being kind of turned off by that, where they'll be like, yeah, I've seen this movie before, or this is, oh God, it's another one of those. But I think, even though that could be a mixed thing, and it is, I agree, I saw the same thing where I was like, yeah, it's something we've seen before. But the story was so effective and so interesting with the lore and the rabbit holes that they go down, and the same with what I talked about earlier with this stuff that involves children and whatnot with that. I think the story is so interesting to me that I was so hooked in that it could have went, as long as it didn't go completely off the rails, but I was so hooked into the story that I was on board for wherever it was going to take me. And like I said, I really loved where the story went. Like I said, it might turn some people off, but it really worked for me. Another thing I'll throw in the mix thing, but it's another thing that worked for me, is I think, two other things, is I think that a lot of people will consider this a slow burn movie, which it absolutely is. It is slow. It is a slow burn movie. But for myself, I absolutely personally love slow burn movies if the story is really interesting. And this story is so effective and so interesting to me that I was hooked in, and like I just said, I was on board for wherever the story was going to take me. I was so enthralled and so hooked in that I had to see where this movie ended. I was never bored. I was never taken out of this by any means. None of that. I was absolutely 100% invested, so I had to see where it was going to go. But I have seen some people already where they pull that classic, oh, nothing happens. It was so slow. Nothing ever happened. Even in the last 8 minutes, nothing happened. I respectfully disagree. I know slow burn isn't for everybody, and a lot of people take different stuff away from slow burn movies, but for me, I love this movie. I thought it was genuinely really well done. My last mixed thing will probably be the ending. I feel like maybe the ending, it might be one of those things to where while it does go kind of batshit at the end, I think it does a great job of still holding on to that tension that that you don't know what's going to happen. And I can see it being one of those endings where people are just like, what the hell was that? But at the same time, I also think it is an ending that is left up to your interpretation, the way that they go about it, the way that they show certain things, and the note that they choose to leave off on. I think there's a lot of things in there that you could debate with somebody. You could get something entirely different out of it. It's one of those things to where one person will go see it, you and a friend could go see it, or you and your husband or girlfriend, wife, whatever could go see it, and could come out of the movie and get two completely different things out of the endings. And it's one of those movies that might start a conversation with not only the ending, but some of maybe the underlying themes throughout the movie. I feel like they are in there. While they're not like, shoved in your face, or one of those movies you're going to be like, oh, it's just a movie pushing something the whole time. It's not that at all. This is easily still one of those movies that you could just go watch and enjoy it as a horror movie and not take anything away from it other than the ending. Or you could really dive deep into it and really want to start a conversation with somebody and really kind of get to the meat of it all. And it's one of those things that's one of the things I love about it, but I can see where people can be really mixed on that and really not like it and kind of just not really be their thing. But for me, I loved it. I honestly didn't really have any negatives with it. I am planning to go see this again when it releases this weekend because I just desperately want to see it again. But honestly, really, this is a movie that I can't recommend enough. Like I said, this might legit be one of the creepiest movies that I've seen in a long time. I've had certain movies and scenes in movies and stuff bother me here and there or really kind of get to me, but it's very rare for an entire movie to keep me on edge, like to the extent of what this one did. As a horror fan and horror movie lovers and people that have seen a lot of this stuff throughout their years, it takes a lot to really kind of get to you because you kind of become desensitized to stuff and you're kind of like, yeah, it's just one of those movies. But this one, I have to say, this one kind of was one that really went through the crack and really got there. If you can, please, 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 a million times please, go see this in the Dolby Cinema if you can. If you have one around you or whatever your equivalent to the Dolby is or anything like that, it needs to be seen in probably the biggest theater that has the most effective sound system. I think because of that, you will just get this completely different experience out of it than you would at home. But with that being said, I can totally understand why the people that got screeners for this movie were so creeped out after the movie was over and really scared to walk around their house. I can totally see that because this is no joke. This is one of those movies that I feel that if I watched it at home, I would legit be scared to walk around my house. There is no way in hell I'm going downstairs in the dark after watching this movie. So I think that really just speaks to the movie overall. And like I said, if you do watch this one at home, you have to turn the lights out. You have to really crank the sound up. Please have some kind of good sound, but really just crank that sound up and watch it about 1 or 2 in the morning and really get immersed in it because it is that effective. If you just let the movie take you for this ride, you will go on some kind of real creepy-ass ride, and I think it'll really stick with you. But if you can, please see it in the cinema. I think it's just a really fun time to be in the theater. And like I said, I think it'll take you on this different type of ride and really take you for a journey that maybe you didn't see coming, but I think it's one that you'll remember and just have a really great time with just the sound design. And just like I said, it's the same way with what I talked about watching it at home. Just get immersed in it and just let it take you. I think this will be one of those movies that will really stay with me, and especially because of the experience I had watching it, it will really stay with me, and this probably will go on my list as in my top favorite horror movies of the year, by a landslide. So this is one for me. I absolutely recommend it. Do everything you can to go see it, and I like I said, I cannot recommend this movie enough. But thank you, everybody. That is my review for Undertone. If this is the review you're finding me on, please come on over to the channel and check out all of my past reviews that I've done so far. I have a handful for 2026, and I got a whole backlog for 2025, but I really appreciate it if you came over and check me out. And if you have seen Undertone, please comment below and let me know what you thought about it, how it affected you, if you took anything, scary away from it, if certain scenes got to you and whatnot. I'd love to know all that. Let's talk about it. And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That way I can see all of you in the next one. Thank you so very much.